are delighted to have Omar Abbosh as our next speaker today. Omar is the Chief Strategy Officer at Accenture, one of the world's leading professional services companies, and we have no doubt that his talk today, entitled The Cybersecurity Confidence Conundrum, will give us all new food for thought. Please welcome Omar.
All right, so next on our board meeting agenda, why don't we get an update from our CISO, Omar. You know, we've invested a lot in cybersecurity, and all of our board members are here, and we all want the same thing. We want to ask you the question, Omar, how are we doing?
Well, thank you so much for having me at our board meeting today. I'm very happy to report that our recent closure of all the open items on our audit and compliance report, it's all gone well. We've rolled out a load of new technology on all our endpoints. We're very happy with that, and we've installed a bunch of new monitoring capabilities. So I feel we're beginning to get our arms around the cybersecurity problem.
So are you saying we don't have to worry about getting hacked?
Well, you know, the attackers are getting more and more sophisticated, and it doesn't take too many of our folks to make a mistake here and there and open up a vulnerability. So we can't be sure that we can fully match against a focused and very committed attacker. But we are more competent around how we're addressing all our compliance needs, and I feel better about our security posture.
Omar, what then should we do to protect ourselves? Are we good or are we not?
That's the question. Yeah, thank you. So that's the question. Are we good or are we not? And as the guys from Team8 have said, I'm not a CISO. I'm not a security expert. I'm Accenture's chief strategy person. And I sort of look at this problem in that light a little bit in terms of, well, actually, what exactly is happening with boards and security professionals in businesses? And I do get to talk to a lot of senior execs at many of the world's biggest companies. And so I feel I have a bit of a sense about what that conversation is, of what's really happening. I think it's important for us here on the back of actually all the excellent speeches that I've heard already so far. The person who I look to in the cyberspace here that we can learn from is the great Andy Grove, the previous CEO and founder of Intel. Only the paranoid survive. And I think that's a great motto for the security profession. And I think we all need to think about it. This is zero place for confidence, let alone overconfidence in the security domain. So what's really happening here? I've got just a couple of questions I want to ask you guys. That's Andy. So how many of you, when you raise your hands, and this is, I assume, Chatham House rules, so we're not going to declare what anyone has said here. How many of you feel strongly that your business has a great security capability or great security posture? So the front row is good. How many of you have been shocked about hearing about a breach that happened exactly in your sector? Okay, so some shocks here. And then finally, the last one. How many of you have actually had a meaningful breach of your own in the last year? Okay. This last one you don't have to declare, I understand. So the thing that goes on here is, when you think about this, we call it the confidence conundrum. When a CISO or an information security professional shows up at the board, they want to exude confidence to the board. That's human nature. It's management incentives. It's exactly how the construct of reporting to the audit committee is set up. And what's more, the board want to feel confident because they want to be able to protect the reputation of the business. They have their fiduciary obligations, and they care about that a lot. Those two sets of wants cause a major problem because actually what the CISO knows about the actual risks is fundamentally different from what the board gets to know about the actual risks. As you know, boards are not generally populated with tons of IT literate people, let alone cyber literate people. They're very smart finance people often. And so this gap in the nose is a problem. And a lot of the issues that we see emerging in business, I mean, it was very simple. The spend on security goes up and up and up, and the problem doesn't go down and down and down. So there's clearly something not working, and I think this issue of the disconnect between what boards know and what the professionals know is a problem, and we've got to attack it. So, so in Accenture, obviously, we're curious about these things, and we sort of say to ourselves, okay, what actually is going on out there? So we did some research. We went to 2,000 IT professionals and security professionals in 2,000 different companies, the most senior security person in each of these 2,000 companies in 10 countries around the world, and asked a bunch of questions. And we're going to publish this, I think, next week, the 2nd of November. But there were some things in here that surprised us a little bit. 75% of the people were confident in their cybersecurity stance. Confident. And actually, the thing that surprised me underneath that was 70% felt that they had fully embedded the security culture in their business, fully embedded. Now, I'm like going, fully embedded means no one clicks on a link. And so there's something in here about the confidence. And yet, at the same time, these same companies declare that on average, across these 2,000 companies from giant companies, I should say, each of the companies is at least $1 billion of net revenues or more. So these are not piddling companies. On average, 106 deliberate, continual attempted breaches to exfiltrate data from the estate of these companies. And 1 in 3 succeeded. So 1 in 3 succeeded. So on the one level, we have a certain level of confidence about where we stand. And on another level, the results are not actually, at least not, I mean, as far as I understand it, as a non-professional, they don't sound brilliant if 2 or 3 times a month data leaves the enterprise, which could be IP or money or who knows what. So this is, I think, something for us to think hard about. And certainly from my perspective, it says we need a different approach. So the question is, what is the approach? And again, I'm going to be extremely cheeky as an outsider and perhaps not so polite. But when you think about where a lot of what happened in security emerged from, it emerged from audit and compliance. And of course, compliance has its role. Checks and checklists have their role. But often what happens in a company is a company maniacally follows a checklist and then goes after one of the 1,600 point solutions we heard about earlier in order to address an item. Now, no question that we have to think hard about compliance and take the learnings of the best from the compliance. No question we have to use some of the best solutions and even features in this. But it turns out that that's not enough. It doesn't fully do the job. And so I don't want to pretend we have all the answers, but I'd like to just give some hypotheses. So we certainly believe in the IT/OT story that I heard earlier. I mean, the full end-to-end value chain. If you're an oil company, from the drill bit through to the pump, all sorts of things can happen along that chain, and that applies in a very big way. And having been inside some refineries of some of my clients in recent years, I completely corroborate what you said earlier about the preparedness. So the first thing we recommend is to look super honestly in the mirror and see exactly how good or not you are. Process, strategy, the way in which decisions get made, the way in which projects get executed and completed, the whole story. Just be very honest about where are we really, and try and forget a little bit sometimes the corporate need to tell a good story. The second thing is to test it. And so not everyone can afford 120 red team professionals inside their company, but you're going to have to find a way of really genuinely pressure testing your defenses with a proper sparring partner who has the mindset of an attacker, who actually thinks genuinely very differently from how most normal people think, and figure out each and every day, how can I constantly improve? And we've got examples working with big international banks, giant analytics. They do everything, and yet you put in our Fusion X guys at the beginning, and in the early few tests, it's not pretty at all. But actually, there's a joint learning that happens, and it gets better and better over time. The third one is around putting the threats in context. I think we heard this in different ways, but again, a business is broad, it's massive, it's diverse. The threat landscape is broad, it's massive, it's diverse. The point solutions are broad, they're massive, they're diverse. No human being can get their head around that. So you've got, of course, we have to figure out what really, really matters. And we hear it all the time. Credentials get stolen. The most senior people's credentials are the ones we don't want to get stolen. So how do we protect them? What are the true crown jewels inside the enterprise that we can align our whole security posture with? The fourth one is around people. There's scarcity of talent in the market. So not everyone is going to have the cybersec professionals of Google and AWS. So what do? Well, it turns out that a lot of the security issues don't arise from the deepest scientific insight into technology. They arise from basic hygiene. And so understanding how to set up a team that spans the spectrum from true, just basic hygiene, but in a very professional, very disciplined, very rigorous, very repetitive way in the enterprise, and freeing up the deep professionals from the mundane tasks so that you can really focus them on the higher order issues is, of course, part of the thing here. And that talks to career paths, compensation, and so all the normal HR stuff around how do you manage a diverse team in one, but recognizing that people are on different tracks. And then the last one is about automation. So, in a world of gazillion alerts and, you don't see what's going on, that's one problem. That's with just a few million or hundreds of millions or billion connected devices. When we go to the land of Internet of Things and you have hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of connected devices, the data coming out is, of course, impossible for any human being to do anything with. So this is the land of AI and automation, and I think we need to be very intelligent with how we apply it in order to free people up from the nonsense in order to focus on the really big things. And one of our big insurance clients, we did something with using data science professionals working on the 4 billion events that they produce and being able to use that to zero it down onto the 10 critical incidents or critical intrusions that they needed to get their top guys to focus on. And these things can work and increasingly are working more. So the short story is we think that it is possible as business and a good society to out-invest the attackers in order to out-innovate. It is possible. Our problem is speed. And Nadav referenced it earlier. The rate at which we can pass information around in order to harness the collective ingenuity to solve the problems is the issue. But I think we can do it. We need to just get our heads around how we get onto this using some of these points that we went through to out-innovate so that business can focus on what it really needs to do, which is innovation and growth. Thank you very much for listening.